Rain, we are told, is an accident, a gift or a disaster. Too much and it destroys, too little and it starves. We are told that dry lands are barren by nature, that deserts are empty, that aridity is absence. And so we build dams that fracture rivers, pipes that stretch for miles, reservoirs that evaporate under a widening sun. We say water must be captured by force, contained, owned. But there was once a system that grew food where rain barely fell. It required no concrete wall, no steel gate, no distant authority to release it. It was patient. It spread quietly across hillsides and wadis. It harvested storms that lasted only hours and fed fields for months. It worked too well. It relied on gravity and memory, not contracts. It could not be centralized. It could not be easily taxed. And what cannot be owned rarely survives the modern world. This is the story of an ancient water harvesting system that turned dry lands into orchards, and why it was forgotten. Here in Ancient Food Files, we keep what was never meant to disappear. Not ruins for tourists, not relics polished for display, but systems that fed people, designs that endured drought and empire alike. We do not preserve them for sentiment. We preserve them because they worked. If this archive matters to you, remain with it. Not for growth, for continuity. Tonight, we open a record written in stone and silt. We travel to lands where rain is brief and silence is long. In the southern Levant, in what is now the Negev Desert of Israel and parts of Jordan and the Sinai Peninsula, rainfall can measure less than 100 millimeters a year. The sky holds back. Clouds pass without promise. And yet, across highlands and dry valleys, archaeologists have found remnants of terraces, channels, and small stone dams stretching for kilometers. Fields where no river flows, orchards where no spring emerges. This was runoff agriculture, flash flood farming, a system designed not for steady rain, but for sudden violence. When storms sweep across the desert, they arrive fiercely. Water rushes down barren slopes, carrying soil and debris, disappearing into sand within hours. To the unprepared, it is chaos. To the attentive, it is opportunity. Among the Nabateans, the people who built Petra around the 4th century BCE, water was never treated as random. It was mapped in the mind. Oral traditions among Bedouin tribes speak of reading land as one reads a story, where stones gather, where grasses bend, where soil darkens after a storm. These were not superstitions. They were hydrology without textbooks. The Nabateans carved channels into rock faces. They built low stone walls across shallow valleys. They shaped terraces along slopes. When rain came, even for a single hour, runoff was slowed, spread, absorbed. Instead of racing away, it was guided into fields. Silt settled, moisture seeped into ground, seeds waited beneath the surface. Barley, wheat, lentils, later orchards of dates and pomegranates. This was not irrigation in the modern sense. No river was diverted, no aquifer drained. It was harvesting what already fell. The system depended on landscape literacy. Catchment areas were calculated by eye and experience. A hillside of 10 hectares might feed a cultivated plot of 1. The ratio mattered. Too small a catchment and crops would wither. Too large and flood would destroy. Stone bunds, rarely more than half a meter high, were placed at intervals. Each slowed water just enough to let it breathe into soil. In some regions, small diversion channels carried water from seasonal streams into fields. Elsewhere, in Yemen's highlands, similar terrace systems rose along mountainsides, some still in use today. In North Africa, earthen embankments reinforced with stone captured runoff from wadis. Across arid lands, variations emerged. Different names, same principle. Slow the water, spread the water, let the soil drink. Biologically, the system did more than hydrate crops. Runoff carries sediment rich in nutrients from uplands. By capturing silt, fields were replenished annually. Organic matter accumulated. Soil depth increased over time. In dry climates, evaporation is relentless. But when water infiltrates quickly and is shaded by crop cover, losses are reduced. Roots follow moisture downward. Microbial life awakens briefly, then returns to dormancy. Seeds in arid lands are accustomed to waiting. They do not demand constant supply. They respond to pulse. The entire ecology of dryland plants evolved around episodic rain. Runoff agriculture aligned with this rhythm. It did not attempt to impose constancy. It embraced fluctuation. This made it resilient. A year of heavy storms meant abundant harvest. A year of light rain meant modest yield, but rarely total failure, because even small storms were captured. Even brief clouds were counted. Historical records from the Byzantine period, around the 4th to 7th centuries CE, describe thriving agricultural communities in the Negev. Wine presses carved into rock, storage jars buried in courtyards, churches adorned with mosaics depicting vines and grain. Excavations reveal extensive runoff farming infrastructure. Terraces still visible today trace ancient fields. These were not marginal outposts. They were productive settlements in lands now considered inhospitable. When empires expanded into the region, they did not introduce agriculture there, they inherited it. The system predated empire, and it outlasted several. Later centuries brought change. Trade routes shifted, urban centers declined. Political instability reduced coordinated labor required to maintain terraces and dams. Runoff systems demand upkeep. Stone walls must be repaired after floods, channels cleared of debris. Knowledge is not passive, it requires hands. When populations thin, systems weaken. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, traditional water harvesting was dismissed as primitive. Engineers favored large dams and centralized irrigation schemes. Grand projects promised control. Reservoirs symbolized progress. Small, decentralized runoff systems were seen as inefficient, difficult to standardize. They did not fit the logic of centralized governance. They were local, contextual, unownable. And so, in many regions, terraces were abandoned. Stone walls collapsed, catchments filled with brush, knowledge retreated into memory. There were no dramatic prohibitions. It simply became peripheral. Investment flowed toward dams and deep wells. For a time, yields increased, but aquifers are finite. Water tables fell. Costs rose. Runoff systems required no drilling. They harvested what the sky provided, however briefly. In the late 20th century, researchers began reassessing these ancient designs. Studies showed that even minimal rainfall, properly captured, could sustain crops. Satellite imagery revealed lines etched into hillsides, ghosts of agriculture. The principle remained unchanged. Slow the water, spread the water, let the soil drink. Now the climate shifts. Storms intensify. Dry spells lengthen. Modern infrastructure struggles with extremes. Runoff agriculture was built for extremes. It expected variability. It absorbed shock. The lesson unsettles. Scarcity was not always destiny. Dry lands were engineered carefully, sustained patiently. The system was not forgotten because it failed. It was forgotten because it did not fit, because it required community more than capital, because it could not be owned. The terraces still trace hillsides in the Negev, in Jordan, in Yemen, in Morocco. Some lie in ruin, some are quietly restored. Each stone placed by someone who understood that rain, however brief, is enough, if held, if respected. What was built in arid valleys centuries ago was not miracle, it was alignment. with gravity, with pulse of rain, with patience. The knowledge remains etched in earth. It does not require permission to endure, only attention. If this record feels worth carrying forward, remain with ancient food files, not for spectacle, for preservation. Because water still falls in brief storms, because soil still thirsts, because time, given space, restores what is neglected. The hills remember, and when rain returns, even for an hour, they are ready.